right, in this lesson we are going to be looking at some different examples of the functions that we have talked about previously. So I am not going to do a whole lot of work on this lesson, but I want you to just kind of watch, and you may have to hit pause throughout the video. So in this first little section here, it asks you to write an example equation for each of the following types and then graph it, okay? So what I will do is I will show you one I choose to do. You might have done a different one, but this is the one I chose. And so I wrote a linear equation and then I graphed it. So hit pause if you want to copy mine exactly. One of the things you can do if you want to choose a different one is write it, and then of course go to your calculator and put that equation into y1 and go and graph it using your table or your screen or whatever. But here is an example of a linear equation. It has a y-intercept of 2 and a slope of 3. So I went up 3, right 1, or down 3, left 1. So there's a linear. Here's a quadratic. Again, hit pause if you want to copy it exactly. Here's a cubic. Again, hit pause if you would like. If you want a different one, go to your y equals on your calculator and go ahead and graph it using your tables. Here's a rational. It does have asymptotes, you can see, at -3. X equals -3 for a vertical asymptote, and y equals 1 for a horizontal. Square root symbol here. So here's an example of a square root. And of course an absolute value. If you want to get the absolute value key on your calculator to graph a different one by hand, then on your calculator, the absolute value key is under math, and then over to number, and then it's number 1, which says ABS, and it's in parentheses. So again, hit the math key, and then right arrow over to number, and then it's number 1, which is ABS. And that'll give you the absolute value, and then you can put whatever you want in parentheses, and it'll be the absolute value of that function. All right, in this next part, you guys, this is going to be actually part of your homework that I will grade, but it's asking you to come up with a definition for some different terms here. So the definition of a function, a linear function, a quadratic function, a cubic function, and a rational function. So you have to define all those, and then on the other side, absolute and square root. You have to define those in your own words. I've kind of given you some examples already, but that's something you need to do on your own. So function, linear function, quadratic, cubic, rational, absolute value, square root, and that's it. And then we will kind of compare answers in class, but that will be part of your homework. I will have an answer key out that you can check that. All right, then when we get to this next section, again, this is something you're going to mostly do on your own here, but I'm going to give you some things to think about. It says, how are a quadratic function and a square root function connected by both their equations and their graphs? So I just want you to remember, I want you to think about these things when you're answering that question. A quadratic function, of course, has a graph that's a parabola, and the equation for that goes like this in vertex form. Hopefully this is coming back to you. So that's that. And then a square root function is half of that. So it either is like this or it's like this. And of course, in vertex form, the equation for that goes like this. Okay, so I want you to think about how those two things are related, okay, when you answer that question. Then when you get to number 2, what do linear functions and cubic functions have in common? I want you to think in terms of end behavior, degrees, that kinds of things. Whatever else you think is pertinent information that they would have in common. And then lastly, write the equation for a parabola like the one that is graphed, and actually just do the one for the one that is graphed, okay? So you can see on this one that the vertex happens at -3, 0. Okay, and so this is your H, and this is your K. And then you can also see that you're going up 1, right 1, up 1, right 3. So because of that, I can tell you that my A is 1. Okay, so go ahead and make an equation for that, and we will talk about it in class.